Alright, so good morning everybody. Good morning students, BSISM first year. Welcome to the second session under in contemporary law. So, in a few minutes, we will start our virtual class. Therefore, for the meantime, please comment down your name on the comment section for you to be recognized. And your attendance will be checked, okay? And it will be recorded. everybody. Welcome to the second session of our class under the contemporary. So right after our class, students, activities and other quizzes will be uploaded on our e-leads. Always remember that in the submission of your grade, in the submission of your output, we will only be using the e-leads, no more platforms. Okay? So always check your e-leads from time to time, every after the discussion we had. And anyways, our discussion today is just the continuation of lesson one and then chapter one on the introduction on globalization. But this morning, we will be reading or we will be exploring different perspectives about globalization from different authors. And we will discern how do they define globalization based on their own perspective and based on their own experience in consideration with some theories which we could apply in the contemporary world. So we will start in a few minutes. So ang nangyayari is if there are questions, you can comment down your answers here and your answer will be recorded. Okay? So along with our discussion this morning, of course, there will be activities, there will be questions. So if you have some idea with that question, you could just simply write your answer on comment or comment down your answer. Okay? So I guess let us begin. Okay, so I guess we'll start now because our time is running. Again, right after this class, kindly visit your e-leads because assignments and quizzes will be uploaded under module 1, no, under module 1. Okay. So I will just share my screen. Now I'll be sharing my screen to you. So good morning. I hope everybody is feeling good today. All right. So I'll just have to make it bigger. So in the previous lesson that we had, I asked you to differentiate I asked you to discuss what is the advantage and disadvantages of globalization. And you were right that as we go along on this discussion, we will be discovering these aspects that globalization will not only bring benefits to us, especially uh, to us Filipinos, because we are still in developing countries. We are actually part of the third world country, means our country is still on the process of its progress. And if we're going to look on it, on the benefits that globalization could bring to us, we could tell that Philippines might be experiencing progress through globalization, such as the exchange, the trades of products, investors from different countries, which is they would actually invest here in our country, and with that, our economy will rise. So, ganun. And there are also some opportunities like scholarship, like solving problem issues in the world, which could actually help from this globalization. So as to the disadvantage of globalization, we could also say that globalization could bring colonization. What do you mean by that? So one of the former presidents of Malaysia, he said that globalization also brings colonization. So when we talk about colonization, through the products we buy, through the products we consume, especially we are now consuming most of the products of Korean people. Therefore, we could actually adapt their culture. And by that, very simple. No? We are simply colonized. We are simply colonized using those products that they introduce to us. When we love it, we introduce it, we use it, we utilize their products, we embrace their products, and sadly, we tend to forget our own culture, but we tend to love and embrace the culture of, for example, the Korean people. So with that, colonization happens. That's how colonization happens in globalization. And also, there will be inequality. Oh, there are also people said that there is an equality, there is a deprivation of rights. No? So those are some example of, or those are just problems with globalization. But after all, we should know how to deal this. Like if this brings benefits, then let's be more focused on the benefits that this globalization could give to us, rather than the disadvantage that this globalization brings to us. Anyway, in every program, in every platform, in every decision, the pros and cons are there. The advantages and disadvantages are there. But it depends upon us people. How are we going to utilize it? How are we going to manage it? Okay? So moving on. So this morning we're going to discuss different definition of globalization from different perspectives. Okay? So I hope everybody understood what globalization is. So globalization, let's just give a little glimpse. When we talk about globalization, it's an interconnectedness through technology, through mass media, and so on and so forth. Now, so from Professor Theodore Levitt, globalization refers to the existence of free exchange of goods, services, culture, and even people between among countries. This is what I was telling earlier. So globalization happens when there is what? There is an exchange. The existence of free exchange of goods, services, culture, even people between and among countries. Anyway, there's nothing bad about sharing culture. It what makes it bad? It will become bad if this country, for example, there are exchange programs wherein Filipino people are invited to go or visit South Korea to witness their culture, to learn about their culture for employment purposes. For example, you will be employed there, so you must be aware of their culture. So kapag ma-employ ka sa Korea, basically, kailangan mo maging aware sa kanilang culture. But it's just for employment purposes. What makes it bad is that when you go to South Korea, pagbalik mo dito na hindi ka na kumakain ng Filipino food, ayaw mo na tangkilikin yung mga pag-ugali ng Pilipino because you embrace the culture of South Korean people. Something like that. That makes it bad. That makes it different. No? When we share culture, it's okay because it's a part of globalization. Since we exchange goods, we exchange services, of course, we could actually exchange culture and exchange people. Of course, this will happen through a seminar. Kaya mapansin nyo, may mga scholarship ang ibang bansa na pwede sa mga Filipino. Like, you will be studying in South Korea, you will be studying in US for free, fully funded. So, isa yan sa advantage ng globalization. No? Because of this interconnectedness, because of this mutual understanding. Regardless of our culture, regardless of our differences, we are becoming united because of globalization. Okay? So yun nga lang, no? We should always what? Remember our culture and who we are. Kahit doon man tayo ma-employed sa South Korea, maybe for how many years, let us just see to it that as we go back in our respective country, our culture is still alive. Hindi yung patay na yung culture natin. Kasi may mga Pilipino man talaga na pilingon, di ba? Pag uwi, minsan nga sa mga lugar-lugar lang, for example, I don't know if you experience this. Based on, as per experience, meron doon sa amin, pumunta siya ng Manila. No? Pagdating niya, pag-uwi niya sa amin, hindi na siya marunong magtedura, hindi na siya marunong mag-Ilonggo, Tagalog na lang. So dyan pa lang, makikita natin na she is being colonized, although it's just part of the Philippines, but with that kind of attitude. Diba? So that's colonization works, no? That's the bad thing about it. If these people, or if we don't know how to deal with it, no? Depende naman yan sa atin. Maybe it's just a matter of being flexible in adapting different culture, but it doesn't mean to forget your own culture. That's bad. Now, along with this globalization, of course, we have here, people become more interested to travel, of course. Since we have mutual understanding with, we have partnership with our countries. So yan, may mga travel na, exchange program, seminar, forum. And another advantage is people learn new languages. So as you go to Korea, you will learn Korean language. When you go to Japan, you will be learning Nihongo. When you go to Europe or Spain, you will learn Spanish. When you go to France, you will learn French. When you go to Japan, Nihongo. When you go to China, you will learn Chinese Mandarin. So isa yan sa advantage ng globalization because of this interconnectedness. And third one is people immerse themselves into new cultures and lifestyle. So immerse means we will be learning the culture and lifestyle of others. For example, you will be employed in South Korea and you have no choice but to immerse yourself with their culture. Kailangan mong makiugnay sa kanilang kultura. Kailangan mong makisabay sa kanilang lifestyle, way of living. Kapag 5 times sila kumakain, dapat 5 times na din. Kapag they respect this place, this is how they act. So you should know that because you are already part of their country. And it's your mutual obligation to learn about it. No? So you can learn that through globalization because of interconnectedness. And now according to UNCTAD or the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, for them, globalization is a closer integration of national economies through trade and financial flows as well as cross-border migration of people. Globalization brings three freedoms: free movement of goods or products, services, capital, or investment, and even person. So that's according to UNCTAD. So for them, there will be a closer integration of national economies through trade and financial flows. So nagkaroon na yun ng integration. Kumbaga, for example, ang Pilipinas, dahil hindi pa siya masyadong developed country, so through exchange, through globalization, through trade, so magkaroon ngayon ng interconnectedness. So maaring tutulungan tayo ng US na bumangon. Tutulungan tayo ng US para i-uplift yung ating bansa. So through trade and financial flow. Pwede, maaring pautangin tayo ng US. Maaring mag-invest ang US. Maaring mag-propose ng program or project ang US to help Filipino people earn and to uplift their financial stability. So something like that. And also, there are 3 freedoms according to this conference or according to this group. Globalization brings 3 freedoms. So we have the freedom of goods or products, services, capital, or investment, and even prison. So kaya may mga exchange program. And merong palitan ng goods na walang tarifa, walang tax, libre lang because we have mutual understanding. We are part of this globalized world. Okay? And according to European Union, globalization is, first, free movement of goods, of abolition of tariff, tax on imported goods. This is what I am telling, no? So, maging free na yung exchange ng ating mga goods, the trade. And there will be no tarifa or tax from every imported goods, no? And there is a free movement of capital or investment because of lifting of strict banking and financial regulation that encourage investors. So there is, ito natataas yung ating capital because of some investors, no? And the 3, movement of persons because of abolition of visa restriction. So kaya nga ngayon, there is a plan daw na baka wala nang visa papuntang China. Pero as what we have observed today, parang nagkakagulo naman, di ba? Nagkakagulo ang China at ang Pilipinas. So I don't think if this will be approved kasi last time merong balita na i-restrict, tanggalin na yung visa papuntang China, passport na lang. If we have mutual understanding. Ito yung benefits kapag merong unity, merong interconnectedness ang isang bansa to other countries through globalization, no? There will be wages hikes. Tataas ang sweldo kasi angat ang ekonomiya, no? There will be what? Privatization, no? There will be privatization. So aside from the wages hikes, there will be privatization, no? And there will be migration and outsourcing of jobs. So kaya may mga OFW tayo. So maybe through globalization, maraming mga trabaho ang magbubukas para sa mga Pilipino, no? There will be migration. Maraming OFW pupunta ng US, Europe to work there and they are safe because there is a mutual understanding. So according to Thomas Larzon, 2001, globalization is the modern term for colonization. Ito na yung sabi ko sa inyo. This is Thomas Larzon. For him, globalization is the modern term of colonization. Kumbaga, pinasosyal lang yung term na pananakop or colonization. So this is what I was telling you earlier. So one of the disadvantages of globalization is colonization. The term colonization. Now, paano ito nangyayari? Yun na nga, no? We tend to adapt the culture because we love Korean people. We have mutual understanding with Korean people and we admire Korean people. Therefore, we end up with patronizing their products, patronizing their culture, and we tend to forget ours. And that's the disadvantage of it, no? Nakakalimutan natin yung sariling kultura natin because of this globalization. O, maybe you would think, okay lang naman kasi part naman tayo ng South Korea because we are part of globalized world. But sometimes it is bad because we tend to forget our words. Nakalimutan natin yung sariling atin, no? I hope that won't happen, no? And according to Martin Core, globalization is the onset of the borderless world. What makes it borderless? Kasi nga, meron ng interconnectedness. Well, nabanggit ko kanina, maybe kapag implemented na itong globalization, itong partnership, wala ng visa. Maybe punta ka ng US, wala ng visa, passport na lang, or maybe baka wala ng passport. You can just simply travel to US without any restrictions, without any requirements. Maybe this will happen if there will be a mutual understanding, and that will only happen kapag merong globalization. Okay. Whereas, according to Omei 1992, globalization's definition is complex, multifaceted, because it deals with either economic, political, and social dimension. So medyo according to Omei naman, medyo complex ang globalization kasi papasok na dito yung not just economic, no, or not just about economy, but it will also include the political and social dimension, like how we socialize with people, interconnection, di ba? Kaya nga, there is a social dimension in the sense that we are trying to reconnect with people around the globe kasi nga, there is a mutual understanding. And also, it is not easy to define because it has a shifting nature. So as time passes by, globalization's definition may be changed. Kasi depende rin sa need at depende sa nangyayari sa mundo. No? Now, it can be influenced by people. Okay, continue tayo. And sometimes, the definition of globalization may depend on the person who defined it. Like, who you are and what's your perspective in life may be what? May be a factor in defining what is globalization. For example, kapag ikaw bilang isang tao, bilang isang author, nakita mo ngayon na pangit yung naging epekto ng globalization, syempre, ang magiging definition mo ngayon is pangit din. Like, you would speak negative or you would speak against globalization because that's your personal views and that's your experience by you that you have experienced colonization because of globalization. But for those people naman who actually appreciate the benefits of globalization, like they they were given scholarship to other countries, and they would probably define globalization as it was experienced by them. So maybe define nila na globalization is good. Globalization is a big help to us, or something like that. So that's according to Omei, no? Kaya naging complex ang definition ng globalization because it might change, no? It might change depending on the person or people who define it. And sometimes we actually use our experience, our own perspective in defining this globalization. Now, space and time are crucial elements of globalization. Foods are being globalized. So, paano naging globalized ang foods? O, yan. Dito sa Takurong, meron ng Korean store. O, di ba? Or maybe here, there are Chinese restaurants. So, that's part of food globalization. And as you go along, you will learn to love their foods and tend to forget. Baka pag uwi mo dito, ayaw mo nang kumain ng bulad, di ba? Ayaw mo nang kumain ng bagoong. Because you are used to eat their foods. And you're being globalized. You're being colonized. Maybe it's quite simple, but gradually, hindi mo alam, na-influensyahan ka nila and you are colonized. Nasasakop ka nila through their foods. Di ba? And anyways, it's not bad naman to explore, to discover the foods of others, the culture of other countries, but we should not forget ours. So dapat pagbalik dito, we're still who we are. We're still Filipinos. And we should still eat our foods because that's part of our life, that's part of our culture as Filipino. Di ba? Even our language, our dialects, di ba? Sabi nga ni Rizal, di ba, ang taong hindi marunong lumingon, I know, ang taong hindi marunong magmahal sa ring wika ay higit pang amoy sa malansang isda. And that's reality. And that will happen in globalization if people do not know how to deal with it. If people do not know how to manage the opportunity that was brought by globalization. Therefore, tayo na tao, we should also assess it, no? Kaya kayo, kung punta kayo ng ibang bansa, baka pagbalik nyo, hindi nyo na alam paano magsalita ng lingwahe nyo. And it means you are colonized and you are globalized. It is not static, no? Hindi static, hindi stable ang globalization. But a dynamic, ongoing process. It's on the dynamic. Globalization involves the inexorable integration of markets. So yan na yung mga integration of markets, exchange trade, nation states, yung forum. For example, ang Pilipinas pupunta ng ibang bansa to attend a forum. And technologies. So what is merely evident in globalization is the rise of technology. Through globalization, ang daming makabagong mga teknolohiya. Maraming pumapasok, may mga iPhone, may mga Apple, ano pa yan, ang daming product na pasok sa ating bansa. Yung Japan surplus, di ba? That's part of technology and that happened through globalization. Kasi ang Pilipinas is gina-allow sila na pumasok or ipasok or to export their products here in our country. And so we are. Pero very rare lang naman tayo, no? Most of the time, China talaga yung dominant in terms of trade. Kaya ang daming Chinese products. Minsan pati kaibigan mo, Chinese products na rin, di ba? All right. Now, in a way that it is enabling individuals, corporations, and nation states to reach around the world further, faster, deeper, and cheaper than ever before. In a way that it is also producing a powerful backlash from those brutalized or left behind by this new system. So minsan naman, nakatulong din naman ito, like, it will help the backlash, no? It will help those who were left behind by this new system. Kaya through globalization, for example, ang Pilipinas is left behind, hindi updated sa mga bagong teknolohiya. So through globalization, through free trade exchange, so we are becoming aware. We are becoming what? Updated of what is new system. Anong bagong gadget. Kaya kung anong labas na gadget ng iPhone, meron agad ang Pilipinas. So that's because of the free trade. And that takes place because of globalization. Okay? So that's it, no? Free trade of technologies, marami pa. According to Thomas Friedman, globalization is about the liberalization and global integration of markets. So yun na yung kanina na sinabi ko na global integration of markets, no? And it also gave what? Liberalization among people. Like, we are free to go to other country. Liberalization in the sense that we are becoming what? Free. We have the freedom to trade products. We have the freedom to study in other country without any restriction. We have the freedom to travel around the world or in our partnered country because of globalization. And also globalization is inevitable and irreversible. So hindi mawawala ang globalization. Whether we like it or not, kailangan nating makikooperate sa globalization because it will help our country. Okay? And we need it. We need it. Then, nobody is in charge of globalization but all of us. Tayo lahat ay in charge sa globalization. And this is also true that globalization benefits everyone in different ways. Malay nyo, isa sa inyo dito pala is mabigyan ng scholarship. Mabigyan ng scholarship na pumunta sa ibang bansa to learn, to study. Diba? And the globalization furthers the spread of democracy around the world. Ito. Na ikakalat or what? yung kalayaan, nagkakaroon ng kalayaan sa buong mundo. Like, tayo, yun nga, malaya tayong magkaroon ng uh, malayaang kalakalan, malaya tayong pumunta sa ibang bansa kung gusto natin, malaya tayong mag-aral na walang mga restriction, walang mga exemption, di ba? Because we are part of it. And sometimes, globalization requires war on terror. So ito na ngayon ang isa sa challenge na mayroon sa globalization. For example, ang isang bansa is pinasok ng mga terrorist. Therefore, ang partner country ngayon tulad ng China or US, they are responsible to help Philippines. Korea lang ha, Korea lang, simba ko lang. For example, no, maraming terrorists ngayon sa Pilipinas and we cannot help ourselves to fight against them. Therefore, there will be a help from US or from China. So, ibig sabihin, dati pa lang nangyayari na itong globalization, no? So, tutulungan ngayon tayo because we are part of globalization and we have mutual understanding with them. So, globalization as a working definition, the best scholarly description of globalization is that of Manfred Steger in 1960s, who described globalization as a process, a condition, a system, a force, and age. He described the process as the expansion and intensification of social relation and consciousness around the world, time, across world space. Ito yung maganda. There will be social relation and consciousness across world, time, and world space. Nagkaroon ng social relation. So that means we will be building what? Camaraderie. We will be building good relationship because of this expansion and intensification. Means, when we say expansion, kumbaga pinalawak, borderless. Pinalawak pa yung, although, hindi naman about the range, pero, kumbaga pinalawak yung, what do you call this? Pinalawak yung mga opportunities sa ating bansa. Like, we are free to travel in US without visa. That's the expansion, no? Expansion of this globalization, of their service. Now, the final attribute of this definition relates to the way people perceive time. Sometimes, yung sabi ko na how we define it depends on our perspective. Steger notes that globalization processes do not occur merely at an objective material level, but they are also involved in the subjective plane of human consciousness. So anyway, what's the difference between objective and subjective? When you say objective, we follow the general standard. Maybe we define globalization as what it is discussed on books or as what it is discussed kung paano siya gi-define ng mga tao sa buong mundo, and that's universal or general. But it is subjective in the sense that you define it based on your own. Sabi ko kanya, di ba, if you experience bad in globalization, you would actually define it badly. So kung ano yung na-experience mo, kung ano yung perspektibo mo bilang isang tao, so that's how you define it. That's being subjective, no? Objective and subjective. When you say objective, this is general standard. Kapag objective naman, your own personal definition. So I hope you get that. So kumustahin mo natin, baka wala ng estudyante. Hello, can you still follow? Narinig nyo ba ako? Okay lang ba yung discussion natin? Like, can you hear it clearly? Okay lang yung boses? Hindi naman siya choppy, hindi putol-putol. So there are 19 students watching. So I guess this is all coming from BSISM 1A, no? This is from BSISM 1A. So again, when we talk about subjective and objective, kapag subjective siya, you give your own definition of what globalization is based on your own perspective, based on your own experience. But when we talk about objective definition, you would actually define globalization as it is. Kung paano siya gi-define sa books, kung paano siya gi-define ng United Nations, kung paano siya gi-define ng mga partnered country. So that's the definition of it. But if we become subjective, we will define it based on our own perspective, how we understood it, based on our experience. So sabi ko kanina, kapag masama yung naging experience mo, of course, you would end up with discussing or defining globalization in not good manner, no? Because that's your perspective and that's being subjective. I hope you understood the difference. Naintindihan nyo ba ang pagkakaiba ng subjective and objective definition? I hope everybody understood that. Because at the end of this discussion, you will check your e-leads for our activities. There will be activities, of course. So that will be announced later before we end up. So that's really true, no? As you submitted your output earlier. So nagbigay ako ng mga perfect score doon sa mga estudyanteng maganda yung pagkaka-define. Take note, class, when we talk about essay, do not use bullet. Huwag kayong maggamit ng asterisk or bullet. Kapag essay means you have to what? Narrate it. It should be what? You're going to discuss it paragraph by paragraph, sentences to sentences. But do not use bullets. Do not use asterisk to enumerate the benefits. Kaya may mga sumagot na ganun, medyo yung score nila, hindi kugi perfect. Although maganda yung idea. No? Then yung iba naman, significantly plagiarize. Sabi ko, you can get idea from the authors but do not copy it directly. Warning ha, I warned you all, when you get answer or ideas from the internet, kailangan nyo i-rephrase and acknowledge the author. Do not own it because malalaman ko din yan and I will deduct points from your output if you will do that. So, avoid plagiarism. No? Rephrase it. Discuss how you understand this citation. Discuss how you understand these ideas. Huwag yung directly kopyahin, copy-paste, tapos. So kaya mapansin nyo sa mga score nyo, I am really particular of that. Alam ko kung kailan kayo gumamit ng own words nyo or kailan kayo kumipya sa internet. So warning yan ha sa mga medyo takilid yung score. Okay? Let's continue. Inyo na tayo. Anyway, we still have 20 minutes to finish this discussion. So I'll be uploading the activities later, right after this one. Anyway, you have the copy of this module, no? You have the copy naman of this module. So you can read it. At least, maintindihan nyo lang with my discussion. And what's good about this StreamYard is pwede nyo panuorin from time to time, no? Kapag medyo hindi nyo naintindihan kasi medyo choppy kayo with that time, so pag bukas, medyo okay ng signal nyo or mamayang gabi, so pwede nyo panuorin ulit. So that's good about it. Whereas kung mag-i-lead sa'yo, yung iba hindi nakakapasok, walang voice, walang sound, at hindi siya masave. Pero dito, yan, surely save siya. And also, aside from that, in other words, people begin to feel that the world has become a smaller place and distance has collapsed from thousands of miles. Just a mouse click away. Because of globalization, di ba? Kumbaga, unlike dati, di ba? Kung walang mga messenger. Like, in just a second, makakasend ka ng message mo ngayon papuntang USA. Unlike dati, di ba? Kapag walang globalization, walang free trade of technologies, so, anong mangyayari? Sulat. And take note that nung unang panahon, for example, you are from Luzon and, for example, may pasyente ka from Luzon. So, pagdating ng sulat sa Mindanao, nailibing na yung patay. So, see, with that instance, with that situation, we can analyze na may malaking benepisyo yung globalization through what? The rise of technology. Kasi nga, mag-text ka lang or mag-chat, messenger, mag-email ka lang sa Mindanao. In just a blink of an eye, basta malakas ang signal, ma-receive agad nila. Pero kapag sulat na 1 month, weeks, or baka worse, abutan ng years. Diba? That's bad about it, and that's very traditional. If we're going to compare today, we are now really progressive. We are now having this technological advancement. And we can credit that through globalization. Nangyari yan because of globalization. Kasi kapag tayo lang, maybe walang mga ganun. Walang mga application that will help us send our messages in just a blink of an eye. It's just one na lang, no? Parang fingertip na lang natin. Nasa fingertip na natin. And aside from that, we feel that the world becomes small. Mang lit-lit na ng mundo because we can connect to each other na lang, di ba? So through social media, you have Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, and many more. Ang daming platform that we can actually connect with other people around the globe. And that makes the world small, di ba? Kasi halos tao, kilala mo na. May mga friends ka na ngayon sa US. May mga friends ka na sa South Korea. Eh, that's good about it. But always bear in mind the term colonization. So if ever you will be invited by a friend of yours in a certain country, so dapat pagbalik mo ng Pilipinas, ganun ka pa rin. Like, although maybe, baka nagpatangos ka lang ng ilong or nagparitoke ka. But, yung attitude mo as a Filipino, the culture that you have, the cultural heritages, the practice, how your parents nurtured you, having Filipino values, dapat andun pa rin, no? Huwag naman pagbalik mo na. Ay, paano mo nalaman na Ilonggo ako? O, diba? That's a joke, but that's reality. Paano mo nalaman na Ilonggo ako? Sa aking paglakad ba? O, diba? That's an example. As they go back to their respective country, they actually change. So yan na, through TV, internet, news. That's why we are aware kung anong nangyayari sa ibang bansa. What is happening in Myanmar today, di ba? We are become aware because of news, because of internet. Pag wala yun sila, hindi natin alam, patay na lahat ng tao sa Myanmar, di ba? Because we are not aware. So that's one of the major benefits that we can actually thank with this globalization. Because it gives us the opportunity to explore the world through the advancement of the technological gadgets. Ayan. So yan na. So according to the Committee for Development Policy, from an economic point of view, globalization can be defined as, ito naman according to the CDP, no, the CDP. So the increasing independence of world economies as a result of the growing scale of cross-border trade of commodities and services, the flow of international capital, and the wide and rapid spread of technology. So yun ang sabi ko, no? Because of the globalization, nagkaroon ng spread of technologies. O hindi lang siya spread, but it's a rapid spread. Grabe. Paglabas ng iPhone 12, iPhone 9, iPhone 10, then iPhone 11, iPhone 12, iPhone Pro Max. So ang dami, ang dami. That's how rapid it is. Ang bilis ng pag-spread ng technology, no? Because of globalization. And ito rin, no, yung tatawag nating flow, international capital, and the cross-border trade, yung libreng pagpapalitan ng mga products. Whereas in geography, globalization is defined as the set of processes like economic, social, cultural, technological, and even institutional that contribute to the relationship between societies and individuals around the world. It is a progressive process by which exchanges and flows between different parts of the world are intensified. Means, yung ating exchanges is being intensified, kumbaga napalawak siya, it's promoted, it is upheld, no? It is upheld. Kumbaga hindi lang ng palitan na lang ng goods, pero naging palitan ng tao. Pero yun nga lang, no, ang minsan nagkaroon ng human trafficking na rin. Isa rin sa disadvantage. And one of the disadvantage pa rin, yung palitan ng mga illegal na droga, palitan ng mga ng mga firearms. ng mga bomba. And pumapasok din ang terrorist. Because of this intensified flows of exchanges, nagkaroon na ng terrorism. Kaya nga yun, nagkaroon ng war on terrorism because of globalization. And we can also denote or we can also tell that the rise of terrorism is also accredited or attributed to globalization. Nagkakaroon ng terrorist sa bansa. Hindi pa natin alam na because we are having mutual understanding with our country, natin alam, may pumapasok na pala ng mga terrorist sa ating bansa. And that's the thing that we need to be aware of, no? Kaya may mga bombing, no, sa ating bansa. And we can actually blame that to globalization. Kaya nga, 'di ba, may mga benefits, meron namang mga disadvantages. Now, a person's perspective shapes his or her definition. Ito na yung sabi kong subjective definition. So kung ano yung perspective natin bilang tao, bilang Pilipino, bilang mamayan, based on our experience, based on our thoughts, ideas, experiences, that's how we define globalization. So kapag pangit yung karanasan mo sa globalization, maybe na terrorist ka, na nadamay ka sa mga terrorist attack, so maaring bibigyan mo ngayon ng negatibong pakahulugan ang globalization. Pero kapag ikaw ngayon ay naipadala sa US at nag-aral ng libre, so ngayon, maaari mong bigyan ng kahulugan ang globalization in the most positive way because you enjoy it. And that's your perspective. This implies globalization is many things, so many different people in different places. Sometimes where we live will also a factor in defining what globalization is. Now, for better understanding, different metaphors are used to define globalization. So ngayon, ginamit tayo ng mga metaphor. Do you know what is metaphor? Metaphor is a figurative what? One of the figures of speech wherein it is used or like example, she is Mona Lisa. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. This is what? This is indirect comparison of two things or objects. Now, globalization is being compared to solidity, liquidity, flows. Yes, flows. Now, solidity. People, things, and places, this harden over time and therefore have limited mobility. So, si solidity, ito tayong mga tao, no? Solidity. This refers to us or mga bagay. And liquidity naman, this refers to ideas, information, and culture, the increasing movement of people around the world, phenomena to move easily once they are on the move. Just like liquid, di ba? Ang liquid, ang bilis, what? Ang bilis mag-spread. For example, ang tubig, di ba? Ang bilis mag-spread. Yan din ay mahalin tulad sa globalization. So, ang liquidity is tulad ng mga technology, information, na ipapadala ang mga information, ang bilis, tulad ng liquid, di ba? Pag naisaboy ang liquid, kakalat, ayan siya. That's another example or another comparison on that is the news. Kapag may balita, in just a blink of an eye, kakalat because of technology, because of internet. Whereas solidity naman, people, di ba? Ang hirap. Solid. Ang hirap is spread ang solid. Kaya ang tao minsan, tulad if you're going to use it in globalization, mahirap makalabas ang tao kasi kailangan niya pa ng visa, things, products. But we have mutual understanding, so yun nga sabi ko, hindi na mahirap na makalabas or makapasok ang tao because of mutual understanding, wala ng visa. Things, yung ating mga free trades, and we can visit places easily, no? Because of globalization. Now, flows is the movement of people, things, information, places, and even diseases spread. This is the bad thing about it. Because of globalization, saan ang mula ang COVID-19? It is from China. So siguro kung walang globalization, walang mutual understanding, walang mga Chinese dito, walang pumapasok na produkto mula sa China papunta sa Pilipinas, maybe walang COVID-19. So isa sa disadvantage ng globalization is the spread of diseases na ipapadala sa pamagitan ng produkto, tao na nag-attend ng mga forum doon. So you can count it in, no? Isa sa disadvantage yung pag-spread ng virus. Parang walang nakakuan. Merong nakasagot yata. I still remember one student who answered like the disadvantage is, one of the disadvantage is the spread of diseases. I could still remember. Movement. Kapag flows, we talk about it's the movement of people. Because we are globalized world, we have mutual understanding, we have interconnectedness, ang bilis ng flow natin, makaka-travel tayo papunta ibang bansa. Things, our products, information, ang bilis, may padala ang chismis, ang balita, because of technology, because of internet. It's just in a blink of an eye. It's just in what? In our fingertip, no? Kabilis-bilis. That's because of globalization. It's an advantage. But yun nga, no, the disadvantage is the spread of the virus or any kind of diseases. Okay? Malapit na tayo matapos. So these flows are like raging floods or less parang baha lang daw. Controlled. Among others, place barriers of any kind, including the oceans, mountains, and even the borders of nation states. Kahit may borders man yan, papadala ng balita through technology. Or, kapag meron na tayong interconnectedness, maaari na tayong mag-travel papuntang ibang bansa without passport or visa. So that's flows. That's how flows work in globalization. Ang bilis ng movement. Ang daming produkto na ipapasok sa bansa, kabilis-bilis. Ang daming mga new gadgets na papasok sa ating bansa, kabilis. That flows. Because there is what? Mutual understanding. There is a partnership. So wala nang masyadong restriction. Wala nang barriers. Yan, tatawag nating place-based barriers. No? These metaphors show how important globalization is as a process. People, business, entities, and governments of different countries interact and integrate. So there is an interaction and integration. We interact and we integrate our products. That's why we have import and export. We have free trade of product. Now, this process has impact on the environment, culture, political system, economic development, and on the human physical well-being in the societies around the world. So the globalization has greatest impact on environment. So it might be good or bad. No, depende na rin pag may nag-invest na from other country and nakasira sa environment, that's bad, especially mining. Culture. Good, what's good about culture is that we learn the culture of others, but what bad is nakalimutan natin yung atin. Political system. We can adapt the political system of other countries. No? And worse is, we might forget ours. Economic development, of course, through investors, through partnership, through free trade, tumataas ang ekonomiya ng ating bansa dahil maraming pumapasok ng mga dolyares. So that's how globalization helps in the development of our economy. On human physical well-being, so karoon ka ngayon ng good relationship. You are becoming socialized person and you will be enjoying different scholarship programs because of globalization. And you can travel. You can have your self-actualization because you will discover the beauty of other countries. And for example, it's a dream come true. Pangarap mo pumunta ng ibang bansa. So it's what? It's your physical well-being. It's your self-actualization because you were able to visit US because of globalization. Now, to summarize, so globalization, scholars do not necessarily disagree with people who criticize unfair international trade deals or global economy organization. Academics differ from journalists and political activists. However, because they see globalization in much broader terms, They view the process through the various lenses that consider multiple broader terms or multiple theories and perspective. So that's how nakadepende yung pag-define natin ng globalization based on our own theories and perspective. So academics call this an interdisciplinary approach. And it is this approach used by the general education courses. Depending on what is being globalized, a different dynamic may be emerged. So maybe while it is important to us, what is globalization? It is likewise important to us. What is or are being globalized? Ano ba talaga ang globalization? At ano yung epekto ng globalization? So earlier, gidiscuss na natin ano-ano yun. Depending on what is being globalized, the vista and conclusions change. So, nevertheless, it is crucial to insist that globalization as a process refers to a larger phenomenon that cannot simply be reduced to the ways in which global markets have been integrated. Notably, globalization is focused on three dimensions. Ayan, ano, to sum it up, the economic, political, and security. Thus, globalization is not a new concept. Globalization as a process of integration of world economies had started thousands of years. So noon pa lang, nagsimulan ang partnership or ang globalization. As merchants from different parts of the world exchange their goods. So noon pa lang may mga barter na, no? Yung pagpasok ni Magellan sa Cebu, sa ating bansa, that's already a globalization. Because Magellan brings his people, Magellan brought his products, brought his culture, and Magellan brought Christianity. And don't you know that Filipino before, we do not have our culture? I mean, we do not have religion. We are not Christians. But Christianity is part of globalization, is part of colonization, which brought to us by the Spaniards, the Spain people. And however, globalization in the modern world moves at a faster pace with the advancement of technology. So mabilis yung paglaganap ng globalization, ng partnership, ng interconnectedness because of technology. And worse is, napabilis din yung pag-spread ng COVID-19. Okay, now, is there any questions? What globalization is? So, in our discussion, what are your realization? Ano yung na-realize yun now? I will give you minutes to answer. So, for those who are late, na yung mga papasok na late na dito sa StreamYard natin, you can still answer it. Just comment down your answer. Now, my question is, what is your realization? So you can type your answer on this comment area, and I will record it. What is your realization about globalization? Right after our discussion. So I'm giving you a few minutes to answer it before we'll end up this video. Again, what is your realization? Ano yung na-realize mo about globalization? Create ako ng banner. So after our discussion, what is your realization about globalization? I will wait for your answers here. What? Answer it here. Okay? Para sa mga latecomers mamaya, you can still answer this question by just simply comment your answer, no? And I will check that. Anyway, it's check ko yan siya kasi recorded naman yan siya. At hindi yan mawawala. What is your realization about this time? I want you to make your own. Do not copy answer from the internet. You've been copying answers na. And after this pala class, please visit your e-list. Mayroon akong ipopost na activity mamaya. Okay? So, sasabihin ko lang what is the activity. Of course, later, I will be posting an activity. So, mamaya ang gagawin nyo is in our next activity, gagawa kayo ng poster. Be creative. In your poster, you're going to give your own definition what is globalization. Again, you will define your own, by yourself, you will define what is globalization. Para sa'yo, ano ang globalization. And you will put that definition in a poster. So, i-edit nyo through PixArt, through Photoshop, through Lightroom. Pwede nyo lagyan ng background picture. Pwede picture nyo or any picture na mag-signify sa definition na binigay nyo. Again, in your activity that will be posted in e-leads, gagawa kayo ng poster. And sa poster na yan, dapat naka-picture format siya, dapat naka-JPEG format. Pwede nyo i-edit sa PixArt, pwede nyo i-edit sa Photoshop, pwede nyo i-edit sa any apps na meron kayo. Lightroom, dapat pagandahin. Be creative, ha? So in your poster, you're going to define what is globalization. Give your own definition of globalization. Again, do not copy the definition from the internet, from any sources. Whatever it is, it's up to you how you define it. There is no wrong answer here. You will define globalization based in your own understanding, based in your own perspective. This time, be subjective. I want you to be subjective in defining what is globalization. So you can actually attach your feeling, you can actually attach your perspective, your experiences, because that will somehow lead you in defining what is globalization, right? But for the meantime, please answer this question. What is your realization about globalization after our discussion? Write your answers here in this comment section. Para sa mga latecomers, just simply watch this video and listen to some important instruction. So I will end this video. Just comment down your answer. Again, the question is, what is your realization about globalization after our discussion? And later, please check your e-list because I'll be posting activity. I'll be posting activity about this discussion that we had. All right, so thank you so much. Thank you for coming. For those who will come on this live, on this discussion, please comment down your name later so you will be recognized. Goodbye, everyone, and see you next week. Please check your GC and your e-leads for further instruction. Okay? Bye-bye.